Hello, hello, and welcome to today's episode of Saddest Night Out. My name is Roy, and I am the host of this daily podcast, which is typically about music and creative culture in London. Today's episode is a first in Saturday Night Out. Saturday? Where on earth am I? Today's episode is a first on Saddest Night Out history, because it's the first time I've had an interview with someone where they aren't in the room with me. Today's guest is Henson, who is a famous, and I will say famous, host of an open mic in London. He used to host the Wedge Issue on Fridays, which has recently come to an end, but he is a man of many talents, of which you will hear about in today's conversation, and we are speaking to each other via Skype. We were meant to get together yesterday, but yours truly here overslept, so I missed the chance, but he said maybe we can do it over the phone, and when we got talking, he said he can record his end, but I didn't have the means to record mine. But I managed to hunter-gatherer style acquire the means to record both of our sides of the conversation. So we spoke via Skype on a laptop. He was coming through the speakers on the laptop. I had my phone recording, as I typically do. I've just listened back to it, and it doesn't sound half bad. I think you can clearly make out what both of us are saying. There's that slight telephone voice that you often get if you're a fan of podcasts and you've ever heard an episode where someone's on the phone. You all know what I'm talking about. But all parts of this episode are perfectly legible. I don't know what word I'm going for here. I'm rambling, and it's only like 2 minutes into the intro. So today's episode, I'm talking to Henson, who tells us all about his history of creating art. And then afterwards, I might catch up a little bit on what I'm up to. I am realizing now, the more I have episodes done by appointment rather than showing up to an event and just spontaneously seeing who's there, the longer the episodes are becoming, because it feels a bit more comfortable, it feels a bit more formal, so we can have some more in-depth discussions. We had yesterday with Marianne, which was about 20 minutes. This one is a similar length. So I guess maybe I would still like to do some episodes where it's just impromptu, whoever I come across, but I'm enjoying this new phase of Saddest Night Out, where I have a bit more of a sit-down chat with someone. So yes, do enjoy this chat between myself and Ant Henson, and I'll see you more afterwards. And we are live. Yes, I'm seeing the red lines. Audio is being captured. Folks, we are in a first for the Saddest Night Out podcast, in that the person I'm talking to isn't here with me physically, but I'm talking to them through the wonders of modern technology. Will you please introduce yourself, guest?
Hello, everybody. My name is Ant Henson. I'm a musician and an actor and an inventor and all sorts. But yeah, and a friend of the marvellous Roy the Destroyer.
Thank you.
Roy and Destroy since whenever he was born.
Thank you for the new nickname. They say there's a modern, I don't know if phenomenon is the right term, but these days a lot of people fit into the title of a multi-hyphenate, in that they do many different things in their career. They don't just have one trajectory. There's got lots of things going on at the same time. And you are, if you look up multi-hyphenate in the dictionary, you will find Ant's face next to that name. That's exactly what you are. So I'd like to try and take a step back to somewhere near the start. When did you first perform in front of other people?
Oh, it's going quite a way back.
Mm-hmm.
I must have been about 8 or 9, something like that. Maybe 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I was performing on stage originally, acting. And it was kind of opening a doorway to a whole world of performance that would lead directly on to my involvement in playing live music as well. But I mean, there's a bit of a story behind how I got into it. I mean, I've always been interested massively in music and in the ideas of performing. But I've got quite a personal sort of drive that really propelled me into it. When I was a younger kid, around that age, I was bullied quite a lot at school, and I had sort of very low self-esteem, and I didn't realise at the time, obviously, but in adult life, kind of when I went into some sort of therapy and stuff, I was suffering from depression even back then. So the actual performance, the opportunities to get out of myself and to be someone else, especially with the acting kind of stuff, initially really did open the door to kind of find myself. And it sounds kind of weird finding yourself at like 10, 11 years old, but it genuinely was like that. It was discovering a whole new side of who I could be, which gave me really an enormous wave of confidence. And there's a few people that really, really helped me out along the way. There was a guy who sadly is no longer with us, but he was a great friend, Gavin Duteau, who used to run the Maverick drama group down in Parkstone and Poole, where I'm from. And yeah, he really encouraged me and a lot of other people to go out and just to express themselves, just to be confident with who they are, and to really play around on stage. And it gave a lot of people the real opportunity to be kids, and that's whether they were kids or adults, which I think is a really powerful thing. And then that just led into falling in love with the idea of performing and the freedom that it gives you to be whoever you want to be, to do whatever you want to do, to create whatever you want to create, which I think is a really, really, really powerful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's in retrospect that you've realised the full therapeutic benefits.
Yeah,
starting
definitely.
Performing. So you started out as acting. So I'm guessing that's going on stage and performing other people's material. When did you start creating your own material and then performing that and sharing that?
It's a bit later. I mean, I was already playing music around the age of... I started playing guitar when I was about 10 or 11. And I was playing classical stuff, so that was all other people's stuff, South American, Spanish kind of pieces. But the whole time there was something bubbling away, wanting to create something else myself. And with the acting side of it, I think that is something creative, in as much as you can take 10 different actors playing the same words on a stage, and every single performance will be different. Everything will give something different to the audience. So there was already that just being nudged gently into existence. And then I started writing songs properly a few years later. I was in a kind of very silly heavy rock band when I was about 14, called The Reapers. We were an odd mixture of me, who was into kind of old rock stuff. We had a few Iron Maiden fans. We had a heavy metal fan, a prog fan. It was quite interesting.
Were you all around the same age?
Yeah. We were all kids. We were just in the same class at school.
Like, breadth of music tastes at that age. You had a 14-year-old into prog.
Yeah. Tommy. Wow. Tommy's a strange and marvellous creature. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we turn up. I say we're a band. This is very much the first school band where I remember we were discussing with mates like about who was going to play what, and then we're like, we haven't got a bassist, and we're like, you can play bass, Luke. And Luke was like, mate, I don't play bass, but I'm a great keyboardist. He's like, no, you've got to play bass. You're a bassist. And I think we played one gig, which was in Tommy's bedroom, to a bunch of the girls from the girls' school, because I was at an all-boys school, and the girls' school was just down the road. And they came round and we showed off to them, and it was absolutely awful. And they were very candid about the fact that it was absolutely awful.
No.
But at the same time, it was the first time we'd ever managed to get 4 girls into Tommy's bedroom. So I think we all saw it as a great success, despite the fact that the music was pretty terrible.
And I'm guessing, similarly to taking the stage for the first time, it sounded like you caught the bug and really felt the positive, like the benefits of it, and wanted to keep doing it. Was it the same after the Reapers? Like, once you had a first taste of putting your own music out there, where you're like, right, I want to keep doing this, I want more of this?
Yeah, it was. Maybe being a teenager as well, it was slightly an opportunity to forge an identity as well. And I remember, I guess it's the same with anyone, but I remember when I was that age, there was very much a kind of tribal identity thing between different groups, and like, the emo culture was just becoming massive, and all of that, and we kind of fitted into. We were very much the in-betweeners at school, so we weren't the cool kids at all, but we fitted into our own little rocky group, and yeah, that was probably driving it at the time. But then later on, a couple of years later, I started a more serious band where we were all really into it. My buddy Adam, who was the singer, had all his recording gear and was really keen to learn about that. So we were called Undercurrent, and we played around, did loads of gigs around the local town when we were like 16, 17, 18. We had a few really fun years. I remember playing at various, community centres and working men's clubs, and people's 16th birthday parties and stuff like that. And we were playing our own music, and that was the next step.
Okay, so all of this is mainly happening in your hometown.
Yeah. We did one gig in London. I didn't move to London until about 7 years ago. I was, in my early 20s. But we did one gig in London when we were, I think, about 17. And we took a coach load of all our fans from Bournemouth and Poole up to London. And then we played the gig in the middle of the day in like a venue next to Leicester Square, which is probably gone now. Yeah. And then a bunch of us went off to Camden afterwards just to check it out and see some of the rock and roll stuff. And then we got beaten up.
Oh, seriously?
Got beaten up for the back road, yeah.
Oh, no.
I got a serious kicking. And then, so that kind of put me off London for quite a few years.
That'll do that. That'll definitely put you off. Oh, man. I'm sorry. It seems like you can laugh about it now. But yeah, I imagine at the time it was a bit harrowing as a teenager to be like,
oh yeah.
So that's the big city.
When it happened, it was pretty grim. And it was a big bunch, like a whole group of guys. So we didn't really stand a chance. But we managed to get out without having to let go of our mobile phones. We got rescued by some security guards from a nearby shop in the end. But we took a good beating first. Yeah. But now in retrospect, it's quite funny looking back because I love London now. And also on the way back, on the coach on the way back, we had all these kind of fangirls who were all feeling really sorry for us. So I'm not gonna lie, we milked it. I remember I overheard one guy sort of who was in our little group who got beaten up sat at the front of the coach. He's like, oh yeah, there were about 20 guys. I think they all had baseball bats. One guy had a chainsaw. Yeah, it was crazy. And it was all nonsense. But yeah, it was an entertaining experience in deep, distant retrospect.
Yeah. So after that, when did you come back to London? Because I imagine that's a pretty formative experience of like, oh man, I don't want to go back there anytime soon. So you said yourself, you love London. So when did you come back here?
Well, after that, I went off to uni, lived in Reading for a few years, and then I came back to Dorset, and I was still making music. That's when I was at uni and back in Dorset was when I started playing solo, doing my acoustic stuff. And that was when I was really getting momentum, and I was getting bigger gigs and getting a few little festivals and just playing, almost every night, and it was great fun. And then it got to a point where, as much as I loved Dorset, I realised I played a lot of the places, pretty much all of them that were open and in the kind of immediate vicinity. I'd met most of the other musicians, and it was a great scene. But I kind of wanted to break out of it, and I kind of got the wanderlust. I've always had a need to keep travelling and keep finding like the next horizon all the time. I've been a Jack Kerouac fan for all my life, and that kind of urge to push on the road has never really left me. But then that really drove me to look for something else. And I was doing a play on Brownsea Island down in Poole Harbour, doing some open air Shakespeare there, and I met a guy who went on to become one of my closest friends, Paul. And he was saying he'd been in London. He's about 10 years older than me, and he'd been in London a few years before and was thinking about going back. And we sat on the boat on the way out across the harbour to go and rehearse one night, and I said, well, let's just go, let's just move to London. And part of it was maybe defiance as well. After, I remember from the whole school experience of being bullied, when I got out of that and moved on to another school and really started building myself back up, I kind of took an unspoken vow not to be ground down by experiences like that, not to let bullies win, not to allow any negative experience to hold me back like that, which then, in an odd way, that made London even more attractive. The fact that I'd gone there, had a bad experience, made me want to go back and construct the experience that I wanted to have, despite that. And so I did, and I absolutely loved it. I lived in London for 7 years, between Wood Green, Tottenham, Walthamstow, Stratford, Highgate, basically like about a quarter of London.
Yeah, you covered some ground there.
Sorry?
You sound like you really covered some ground there.
Yeah. I bounced around a lot. I lived in houses, lived in warehouses with a bunch of other artists, lived in some really crap houses. One, I came home from a gig one night and the ceiling had collapsed and all my stuff, which is pretty ridiculous. And then I decided to move into a van because I got a bit annoyed with London rent.
Yeah.
And then I've been living in the van for quite a few years, playing my gigs. And then once I had the van, I suddenly had financial freedom and started pushing out more into Europe and playing in other places. And yeah, it's all kind of spiraled from there.
Now, whilst you've been in London, we came across each other. I actually came to your open mic, I think, a couple of years ago before I started doing these open mics myself. And your Friday night at the Wedge Issue open mics were pretty legendary. How did they start? Were you the first to do it, or did someone else start it and then you joined them?
I started that one. I actually started doing my own open mic. I sort of stepped in for other people a few times for their ones, but my first own one was when I was living in Tottenham. Mm-hmm. I did one at a pub up around there. And I'll be honest, it wasn't an ideal pub. The landlord had a serious pathological hatred of musicians for some reason, so I'm not sure why I was there some nights. I remember at one point there was this very quiet folk singer. She had a beautiful voice, was playing this meaningful, gentle song on the stage, mm-hmm. and then he turns up the football full volume.
Oh, God.
It was pretty grim in that respect. But anyway, that folded relatively quickly after a few months. I thought, I've got to get out of this. So I got out of there, and I, by complete accident, ended up running one at Wedge Issue, which until very recently, well, it's got one more day open, was a fantastic pizza restaurant in Clerkenwell. And I discovered that, meeting my buddy Paul, the one who moved to London with me. We were meeting up for a chat about some radical economic and technological ideas we're having. And we'd decided to have a chat about what is to be done next. And we just picked the place. He was living in Brixton, I was living somewhere up north. I think I was probably still in Tottenham. And we thought, let's meet by Farringdon. So we met there, and we had a little chat, and we didn't really know where to go. And he just got his new headphones his girlfriend at the time had given him. He said, "Oh man, listen to this song. I just discovered this amazing song. Like, it will just make you want to walk. Like, you won't be able to stop moving." I put it on, and it was Big Bird by Eddie Floyd, which, if you haven't heard it, is the best song ever. It will just get in your bones. And I started walking, and it was playing, and this huge wave of euphoria was coming over me, and it was like a scene from a film. I was like clicking my fingers and pointing at people.
Finger guns everywhere.
Huh?
Finger guns?
Yeah, finger guns all the way, man. I never ran out of bullets. It was great. And then we kept on marching, and then the song suddenly ended. And I was like, oh man, that was quite an experience. And I took the headphones off, and we stood outside this pizza joint that also served beers. So he said, let's go in and have a couple of pints and continue the discussion. So we did that, and I went downstairs to the toilet, saw this massive open space. Yeah. And I thought, this is open mic territory. So I had a chat with the owners, and they said, yeah, we'll give it a try. And we gave it a try. It worked well, and then yeah, it carried on. We were open to musicians, poets, comedians, magicians. We had a couple of mind readers come down, and tried to make a real melting pot where people would, from all different creative bents, would hopefully come together, get a chance to kind of cross-pollinate the scenes, because it's so sort of divided in London. You don't often meet the creatives doing different stuff to you, because there's obviously so many of us there, and try and make just a little base for people to kind of cross over. And yeah, it was great fun, but sadly it was the last one last Friday. So that one is no more, but it was great. And it was great to meet you as well.
And yourself as well. You make quite an impression. You are an excellent host. So when did it start? What year was that?
Right, I'm really bad at dates. I'm not a very good interviewee here, but it was 3.5 years ago. So whenever that would be. Was it now? 2019?
Yeah. So carry the one. Get my fingers and thumbs out. Like, we're thinking maybe 2015, 2016-ish?
I think it was the start of 2016. I think that's when we kicked off, yeah.
And were there any particularly well-known people that went through your lineups list? Yes, we had a few. We had all kinds of... we had a lot of people, a real mixture from total beginners to like absolute pros. Some people would keep it a little bit more quiet about who they were. So we had a couple of people who have achieved a lot who just wanted to turn up for open mic. But we also had a few people who were quite candid about who they were. We had Tony Kaye, director from American History X, writes some cracking songs. He's been down a few times. And then we had
we've had I don't know if you've ever done the Stag's Head in Hoxton. It's just a shout out to another open mic every other week over in Hoxton. And Phil, who runs that, he's a multi-Grammy award winner. And not a lot of people know that, but he's absolutely brilliant. He's been down a few times. And we also had Sam Smith rocked up. And he turned up late. I'm a laid back guy, but for open mic, I'm a real stickler for the rules, just because for me the whole premise of open mic is that absolutely everyone's equal, and it's a completely open thing. It doesn't matter if you're famous or you've never got on a stage before. You're treated the same way. And he turned up really late, and his manager or whoever it was came up and he's like, "Hey, can we get him on?" And I was like, yeah, of course, no problem. We'll get him on at the end, which is what happens when people turn up later. And I have no problem people turn up late. We'll just wait your turn. We'll get you on stage. And then he was like, "Oh no, he's really got to get on now." And I said, "Well, unfortunately, dude, we've got people who've been waiting about 3 hours to perform, so it's it's not really fair." So then he left. So sadly, he never performed at the open mic, but he did try. He just was too late.
I can't salute you hard enough for sticking to the rules like that. I honestly don't know if I would have been as stringent as you. I might have been like, "Oh my God, it's Sam Smith. Yes, of course you can go on." But no, I respect that you were like, "I'm really grateful you're here, but we do have a bit of a waiting list, so yeah, you've got to wait your turn." Because I'm similar to you. I'm very much like, everyone's equal when they come to perform on our stage. And if anything, I tend to lean more towards people who are new to it, because I know how nerve-wracking it can be to work up the courage to go from playing in your room or playing by yourself to getting on a stage in front of strangers and actually showing people your stuff. So they're the people who I really try and make sure they have a good experience. Because if you go on stage for the first time and it goes well, you get that buzz. It's like, right, when's the next one? I can't wait to go back and do it again. And I think sometimes you get experienced people who are used to it and kind of act like they are VIP and the rules don't apply to them, etc. So good on you, sir, for sticking up for all of us, fighting the good fight of the open mics.
Well, I think it's interesting what you said about new people and the value it has, because some people think of open mics as being, loads of people who never got on stage and it sometimes being a bit shambolic or whatever, but actually it's not that. It's for absolutely everyone. And there's a lot of very good people who come down and play. I mean, I do it. I remember when I was gigging a lot more. I mean, I've kind of taken a bit of a hiatus recently, but when I was gigging all the time, I love turning up at an open mic because there's absolutely no pressure. There's no obligation to do anything of any particular level of quality. There's no obligation to even turn up. You get complete freedom. You can play your new stuff. You can collaborate with people, do whatever you want. And having that environment, I think, is really, really, really useful for new people, because it takes away a big chunk of the fear. Once you remove the judgment element from it that you get at a gig or a showcase or whatever, where everyone's expecting you to be good because you've been asked to go there and all that, it's really, really important. And I think you're dead right on that. It's really important to focus on making sure those people have a good experience, because sometimes I've seen people who have turned up, and to be frank, sometimes it might not be the best performance to kick off with, but then you see them come back week after week, and you see after a couple of months they've totally transformed. And it's mind-blowing. And to me, that's one of the most I don't know what the word is. It gives me a lot of energy and a lot of inspiration, I suppose, when I see people do that and stick at it. And you can see someone who was terrified to step on a stage can just flip it around and develop this confidence, develop this talent, all in a matter of months. And that's pretty rare and pretty special.
I couldn't agree more. So we've kind of gone through the long and storied history of Ant Henson up to the very recent present. Sorry, you okay?
Sorry, so I've got another line just came through, but they can wait because they're not as cool as you, Roy.
Oh, shucks. I bet you say that to all the interviewers, but thank you. So, we're now at Ant Henson present day. What have you got going on right now? Because it sounds like you've got quite a lot going on.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, I am spinning a lot of plates, as always. Although that is a skill I've never mastered, so that's for the future. But at the minute, this weekend coming up, I am going to be on the stage in an acting capacity. So I'm going to be playing Hamlet in Hamlet, which will be open air in Reading, in Caversham Court Gardens, just north of the river. It's a beautiful little setting. It's all to raise money for Macmillan Cancer, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a mixture of professional and amateur cast, and it happens every year. It's called 60 Hours Shakespeare. If you'd like to get tickets, just look up 60 Hours Shakespeare. You'll find it. We did Much Ado About Nothing last year, and I'm not sure what they're going to do next year, but I may well audition again. It's a lot of fun, and the premise is that they meet up, and you get cast. You audition at the start of the year. You get cast. You get to learn your parts, but then you don't really meet properly the rest of the cast until the weekend of the performance. So we're meeting up for the first time all together tomorrow night at 7:00.
Wow.
Then we got our first performance on Sunday night, and then another one on Monday night. So it's a really mad way, but it's actually not that dissimilar to the way a lot of theatre used to work. So you'd have a lot of companies of actors who would only come together, who would be known for knowing the parts. They'd have a repertoire of plays they'd know inside out, and they would come together and they'd be like, okay, well, we're doing this one in a couple of days, especially some of the travelling groups where they might get asked to perform certain things, and they'd get a very, very limited rehearsal time. So we're trying to bring back a little bit of that, and also just have some fun, raise some money for a good cause, and hopefully put on a good show.
That sounds really cool. So is it fair to say right now acting is taking more of a precedent over music for you?
I mean, today, on sort of Thursday, the 23rd of May, that is correct.
Okay.
It does happen to change day by day, hour by hour. So I also have a new song coming out next week. So I've got a bit of a protest song called State of Disarray, which is going to be out next Friday on Spotify and iTunes, all that. Just look for my name, it's just Henson.
Okay.
And that's coming out. So once that comes out, I'll probably switch over to pushing the music a little bit more. But I'm also writing a book. That's my main project over the next coming months, about economic transformation and some hopefully pretty optimistic and hopefully inspiring ideas about how technology could actually be the key around all of these problems of technological unemployment and climate catastrophe and all of the big issues at the moment, and economic democracy and inequality and so on. And so really, that's my big focus, is working on that.
Like you've literally, this is one episode we've done, but you just spelled out another 6 or 7 episodes I could do there with all that you've got coming up. That's it really feels like, to kind of round it up, the seed that was planted in you as a youth about getting on stage and kind of coming outside of yourself has sprouted many flowers that have benefited all of us. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for getting me on here. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for getting me to download Skype, basically, as well. This has gone absolutely swimmingly, so thank you for that as well. Is there any one place online that people can go to find out all that you're up to?
Not so much. It's a little bit fragmented at present. The best thing I would recommend, if you want to check out my music, have a look on Spotify. I'm in the process of rebuilding a kind of a website for everything, really. The book's going to be hopefully out next year. Exactly when is a little bit contingent because I'm still working on it. But that's going to be called Autosufficiency. So look out for that. And as far as acting goes, I've only got the one project on stage at the moment, which is going to be Hamlet, which is Sunday and Monday in Caversham Court Gardens in Reading. And that's it. And if you want to, obviously, get in touch with me at any possible means, then if anyone wants to chat more about any of the stuff I talked about, it's just ant@anthenson.com. I'm always willing to have a conversation.
I will say, if anyone listening to this ever crosses paths with Ant, do ask for one of his cards because they are magnificent. I had an open mic night last week. A new performer came. I asked them, how did you find out about our night? And they said, I went to the Saturday one and bumped into this guy, Ants, and he gave me this card. And oh my goodness, it stole the whole night for me. It was outstanding. So if anyone is lucky enough to meet you in person, I hope they manage to see one of these cards for themselves.
Yeah, I hope they remember Pokemon cards as well. Some people just think it's a strange looking card with a half naked picture of me on it, and they don't really get it, and they're like, did I just pick this out of a phone box? Like, what's all this about? But yeah, if you remember Pokemon cards, hopefully you'll appreciate it. But yeah.
All right, Ant, thank you very much for your time. I'll talk to you again soon.
Right, thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye.
And that was that. An enormous thank you to Ants for joining me and for getting me to download Skype as well. A whole new world has indeed been opened up for Saddest Night Out. Who knows who I'm going to talk to next? Now, like, the what do you call it? The floodgates have been opened, because now I could talk to anyone from anywhere. That might come more later, because I still like the idea of capturing the ambience of being in a place with a person. But it's nice to know I have the option, should I wish to use it, to maybe talk to someone from America or France, as was often mentioned on this, or, I know, Japan. Who knows? Anywhere now. With the power of the internet, anything is possible. I'm rambling again. It's only been 30 seconds. Come on, Roy, let's stick to a topic. Yes, I have an open mic night tonight. It's funny, Ant and I were talking about people doing an open mic for the first time. Last night I was back at the Littleton Arms in Camden. The previous few Wednesdays I was at Ruby's in Dalston, but unfortunately that one is no more. We're no longer having open mic nights there. The venue itself still exists. So last night was my return to Camden, and the third performer was someone who was performing for the first time ever. Her name is Shania. Her mum Ingrid was there. I spoke to her mum a little bit afterwards, and she was enormously proud. She said Shania's a bit shy, but Ingrid, her mum, was the one who said, no, if you want to do this, if singing is your passion, you have to get used to kind of performing in front of crowds. And I said, our nights are perfect for that. That's exactly what we are, a stepping stone for people who are new to this, to dip their toe in the pool, see if it's for them, and to get better and better. There's another performer, Nicole, who at the moment will typically sing along to a backing track, like a cover of someone else's song, with the song, not an instrumental version, but the actual song playing underneath. And she's also started out quite shy and is growing in confidence with each performance. Maybe I'll get her on the podcast too. So it was great. I knew Ant was very much a kindred spirit when it comes to the belief system behind hosting open mics, and he was a great host for us, and who knows, maybe at some point in the future he might host some open mic nights with us again as well. Tonight I'm in Hoxton at the Nelsons, but Fur are playing in Carnaby Street tonight, and I want to see if there's maybe a chance I could pop by there and then go to my open mic. So watch this space. I might get a chat with them. I might get a chat with someone from the open mic. Who knows? Tomorrow I am seeing an old friend to talk for the podcast, someone who's been to many, many gigs. So you've got that to look forward to at least at some point this week. But otherwise, that's all from me. I will put links to all the places you can find Ant in the notes for this episode. You can find me online, just search for the word Saddest Night Out, all as one word. You can email me saddestnightout@gmail.com. Otherwise, thank you as always for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.